Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is going to be a great show, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. It's not all the time that we have to take a big responsibility into our hands, and nothing is more bigger than having to take the responsibility of somebody being diagnosed with cancer, pretty much not given a chance because the cancer becomes so severe that you take matters into your own hands because you believe so cold-heartedly that this person can beat it. Today on the show, we have a young lady that actually went through this type of journey, and I'm grateful that she is coming on to share that story and that journey that she took with someone in her life. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome all the way from Canada. Yeah, it's cold, Canada. The one, the only, the number one fitness instructor in the Canadian area, by the way, Miss Janet Osborne. Janet, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You know, we talked last for a while, and your story is so remarkable that if you probably told a bunch of people, they wouldn't believe it. Let's start out with telling the viewers a little bit about you before we get deep into your journey with recovery in your household.
Okay, sure. So I've been in the health and fitness industry for over 30 years, probably 35 years. And I started out in fitness, teaching aerobic classes, and kind of grew from there with the industry. I went into nutrition. I am a registered holistic nutritionist, and kind of grew with the whole fitness nutrition industry, as a personal trainer, teaching all different types of classes. I started teaching anatomy and physiology and nutrition in a college, and have just loved the business of fitness and nutrition and helping people to be the best they can, to be, reach their full potential in their fitness level and leveling up with nutrition, losing weight, gaining muscle, whatever it is they want to do.
You're like me. We both have a fitness background, fitness degree. I've been training for many years, professional athlete. We as trainers, we deal with all kind of variations of health when people
Yes.
come to see us. In your wildest dreams, did you ever think that you will be put in a situation that you have to take your expertise and bring it into your family?
Honestly, I thought I was doing that all the way along. Because I have my whole family exercising, everybody eating healthy.
Mhm.
And, we were juicing, eating organic, lots of vegetables, lean protein. So yeah, I thought we were doing all that to prevent
Mhm.
ever being in the situation. So it was shocking for me to end up in that situation with my
So,
husband. And
so
I think I didn't mention to you earlier, but it was his second cancer diagnosed.
really,
Yeah, he had had a cancer 10 years prior. And, when he was diagnosed, and of course, I have a lot of friends in the industry, it's like that's my circle. I'm sure it's yours too.
mhm.
And friends would say, oh, that's nothing that a good juice fast couldn't, take care of. And I just thought, well, we've been doing that, and he still
Right.
got the cancer. So that's not going to be the solution. But he had a throat cancer, went through radiation, chemotherapy, and he got through that. And I really didn't doubt that he wouldn't get through that. But 10 years later, this new diagnosis was the real shocker.
So let's go back a minute, Janet. You mentioned that your husband unfortunately had two bouts with cancer. What was
Mm-hmm.
your husband's lifestyle like before the first one hit? So the people can understand that
Yeah.
he wasn't not healthy, but what was his health like prior to the first cancer?
His health was, his health was good in the sense that he exercised regularly,
Mhm.
ate healthy, um, that kind of thing. But now with what I know, with what I have learned in this last cancer,
Right.
we have terrains, like 10 different terrains. Everybody has cancer cells. Only 1 in 1,000 people do not have cancer cells in their body right now. And if you give the cancer cells the terrain to grow in, it's going to grow. So what you want to do is give it an inhospitable environment. So we look at what caused his cancer, and one of the terrains is immune system. And he had a car accident 40 years ago, and he has a severe knee injury that is constantly infected, and it just always oozing pus and infection. So we now with everything I know now, I think that was his weak terrain was immune system, because his immune system was really working so hard on this knee constantly that our immune system is one of our first lines of defense against cancer as well.
So when he was diagnosed with this first stage of cancer, what was the stages, and what did you guys do to what expertise did you bring? Because this is the beginning of your journey.
The beginning of my journey, yeah. So the first cancer, he was stage 2, went through radiation, chemotherapy. We continued to eat healthy and do our thing. And he came through that cancer. And I didn't dig really deeply into that at that time. I just, trusted the system, and I knew we ate a healthy lifestyle. So I really wasn't thinking there was anything we could do to help it other than to keep living our healthy lifestyle. Second time, 10 years later, and I just want to say what I've learned also, it's not uncommon 10 years later to get another cancer, because chemotherapy and radiation are group 1 carcinogens. And it's not unusual that causes another cancer, unrelated cancer, 10 years later. So that could be the cause of his second cancer, but also, the knee continued to be a problem, still had a challenge with his immune system. And
Janet, was he going through, did he have reconstructive knee surgery, knee replacements? What was the condition of the knee that kept causing the infection that was attacking his immune system to begin with? And how noticeable was this?
Yeah, he didn't have any reconstructive surgery or anything. He just smashed his knee into the dashboard in a severe car accident, and it just never healed, and it would be infected and swollen. So he's had 10 microscopic surgeries on it. Every time he'd have a new doctor, they would say, "Oh, the latest the top orthopedic doctor in Toronto and Canada, whatever, he's going to fix this for you." So Greg would go and he would have the surgery, and then they would flush it out. They would, intravenous antibiotics, whatnot, and they'd say, "Okay, you're going to be good." He'd come back for his follow-up, infection still there. Come back for another follow-up, infection still there. Then they would just kind of drop him, until the next doctor would say, "Oh, I can fix this." And so we don't know. We never did find out. He's had so many surgeries on it and so many different doctors looking at it. We don't know if there was a piece of something left in there, that's what he thought, a piece of the dashboard. We don't know. But it continued to be severely infected, and it would swell up. He wore a Band-Aid for 30 years. Every single day he'd go through several Band-Aids because it would be oozing. So
when the second bout came, what was the time frame between the two cancers? What are we looking at as far as the time lapse from having one cancer to the other one?
11 years between the two. And the second cancer was April 2021, and he went into it was during COVID. So it was taking a while. He was having severe abdominal pain. I thought he hadn't been looking well for several months before that. But now he had pain, and he was calling the doctor, and of course they wanted to do COVID tests. And it just takes forever going from one test to the next. And I said, I'm just going to take you to emergency. You should just go into emergency, tell them you're in pain, you can't sleep. So I had to drop him off. I couldn't go into the hospital during COVID. Dropped him off, and I guess, one test led to another, and I dropped him off at 11:30 in the morning. And by 9:00 at night, he phoned me and said, "I have cancer."
Wow.
And and they thought it was some kind of a lymphoma, but they weren't sure. There's Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's. So we were hoping for Hodgkin's. That's a better prognosis, much better. It's 90% curable. But by the time he was in the hospital now at this point for 11 days, because his kidneys also weren't functioning well at all. They were barely functioning at that point because one tumor was so big, pressing on his kidney. So he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Then they have to, in that, there's like hundreds of subgroups of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it took a long time for them to figure out exactly what he had. But they finally diagnosed it as plasmablastic. And it's a very rare, very aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They said he was somewhere between stage 3 and 4. He had tumors throughout his chest cavity, all through his abdominal cavity. Tumor the size of a grapefruit in his abdominal, like very large tumor, and lots of smaller tumors. And so this cancer that he had, this type of cancer, as I said, it's very rare, but it's mostly would only be found in somebody who's HIV positive. And Greg is not HIV positive, but that's where we go to the immune system, right? Because HIV is an immune deficiency disease. And
let me interrupt you for a second before you continue with this story. He gets put in the hospital during one of the most crazy moments of the world. We're talking about a pandemic.
Yes.
We're talking about the fact that you can't go in there. You got to drop your husband off with the conditions that he told you he's got, when you already realize he already had, what was it, 10 years ago, one battle of cancer, but now he's in there alone, minimum hospitalization coverage because nobody's really working or overworked.
Exactly.
You still don't know what's going on. What take me in your mindset. I mean, this cannot be easy for you and your family.
No, it was, and our children are adults, and they weren't living with us, I'm home alone. It's lockdown, so you don't even have your friends, you don't have anybody around, and he felt terrible having to tell me this news over the phone. I felt terrible that I wasn't there with him receiving this news, and I just knew it was bad. And of course, we called the children right away, and one was living in the US, but and 2, my son and daughter were actually roommates living together. So one of them came home and stayed with me, and then the other one came home on the weekends. And we were going to the hospital. We were one of those people you saw in the news with the signs saying, "Hello, we love you, Daddy," you know?
Really?
Yeah,
Were you ever, and I know the answer is yes. What if, I know the thought of COVID had to enter you guys' mind on top of that. I mean, it couldn't make matters, what did the doctor share with you during this thing? Because now you're sitting there waiting on some type of diagnosis. What were they telling you until they figured out what it actually was?
They really weren't saying anything other than, non-Hodgkin's. They needed to wait, but they were also treating his kidney at that time. So that's why they were keeping him in the hospital until his kidneys were functioning. And no, they really weren't at that time saying much, other than it was an advanced stage. And because they don't really assign you an oncologist or anything until they have diagnosed you. And so, yeah, they really weren't telling us much. But I just knew this was serious. Like in the first cancer is always serious, but I didn't feel that in my gut the first time. This time, I just knew this is different. This is bad. He was home by the time they did die. Then by the time he left, they still couldn't diagnose it. They were really having problems diagnosing it. And they ended up just putting him on a broad spectrum, a general chemotherapy and oral chemotherapy, just to give him something to get something started until they could diagnose what it was. And because
so they let him come home during the pre-COVID, I take it, and then you had to basically become the nurse.
Yes. And it was really scary because it was really during that time that there was so much fear around COVID. And because he had cancer, they would, you were thinking, oh my gosh, if he gets COVID, he's just going to die, he's not going to be able to fight it.
Right.
So then we were keeping the children away. So they were there with me, and then we weren't letting them come. Because we didn't want to expose him to anybody. And so, I mean, that was an added fear on top of it all. I had in the meantime already, while he was in the hospital, because I knew this is different, this is aggressive, this is going to be bad. I knew because I already knew it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's a more difficult cancer to get rid of, no matter what type it is. And so I already started to study and, read, because as a holistic nutritionist, everybody, I think most people know that cancer feeds off sugar.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'm going to just dive into my books and look into the ketogenic diet and, you know, how, because I think we are going to have to help this along. As I told you the first time, I thought, well, we already eat a healthy diet. We can't do anything. This time I knew we got to do something because,
I was getting ready to ask, what changed from the first cancer, because you was already eating and doing things correctly. How much more intense did you have to go into with this
this
next
time,
stage?
yeah, this time, and it's exactly what I said to him on the phone is, this is your second time getting cancer. Obviously, you're susceptible. You're going to have to go on a ketogenic diet. So, and we weren't keto, but I thought, okay, we're pulling the plug on the glucose, on the sugar, on the carbs completely. We're not going to feed the cancer. You know, you're very susceptible. So we're changing from just being healthy eaters. Now we're going to be on a metabolic diet like that.
Janet, explain to the viewers, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this show is about educating as well. And I don't want to educate on the keto's diet because this is your segment. So educate the viewers a little bit of what the keto's diet is and why you implemented this in your regimen with your husband in his cancer survival.
Sure. Yeah. So first thing I did was take out my books reading the ketogenic diet, but then I thought, okay, I need to get right into the science here. And this is what I didn't know at the time and discovered very shortly when I started researching is Otto Warburg won the Nobel Prize in 1931 for discovering the respiration of a cancer cell, that cancer cells ferment glucose. That's how they survive. And they do that anaerobically without oxygen. And shortly after, there was a lot of research coming out on that. It was very exciting. Shortly after that, chemotherapy came into our world. And I think that Otto Warburg, the Warburg effect, it's still known today as the Warburg effect. That's how the cancer cell survives. It kind of went on the side burner. And then Thomas Seyfried, he's a professor at the Boston University. He's taken over that research. And so it's taken off and is getting a lot of credibility again. A lot of scientists, there's a lot of published now articles on ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is a therapeutic diet, medical diet developed for epilepsy, for seizures, right? And now people have gone on to study it for cancer. And it started because of the seizure, because it worked on epilepsy. It started with glioblastomas, like a brain cancer, the most severe aggressive cancer. And that's what the ketogenic diet was originally studied for, and now for all cancers. So Warburg discovered that cancer cells ferment glucose and replicate very quickly. So they reprogram our metabolism. Cancer reprograms our metabolism. And that's why one of the first signs you see in people with cancer is they lose weight, because the cancer cells are eating so quickly all of the glucose and fermenting. So you will lose weight initially.
That actually happened to my best friend that had stage 4 brain cancer, bodybuilder. And I think within a couple of days after he was diagnosed, his weight just tremendously. Yeah, it was unbelievable. But
yes,
with that said, and you started to implement this regimen into your husband's cure package, what did you see happen with him?
Well, first of all, as soon as because in the meantime, in the middle of my studying, he got they finally come up with the diagnosis of plasmablastic. And so of course I Googled that. That's what people do, right? And they tell you not to, but I did. And it said that a person will usually live from 3 to 5 months from diagnosis with plasmablastic non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so that was very scary, but I really actually had so much faith in what I read, made so much sense to me, because if the cancer cells need glucose to survive, if you pull the plug on the food, you're really weakening the cells, right?
Yeah.
Our cells
cut off the blood supply, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's literally. And our healthy cells can survive on fat and ketones. So when you are in ketosis, you become a fat burner, not a sugar burner, not a glucose burner. And our healthy cells will survive on ketones and fat. cancer cells are not metabolically flexible, so they cannot survive on fat or on ketones. In fact, ketones are toxic to cancer cells.
When you
So I
when you
had
put your go
yeah.
ahead, go ahead.
So it gave me so much hope and so much faith in what I was doing. And I was just like eating up this information, like researching, and started to take some courses and whatnot. But so the ketones are going to protect your healthy cells. They're going to weaken the cancer cells to the chemotherapy. The keto diet or ketosis actually helps chemotherapy do what it's supposed to do, but also protects your healthy cells from the damages of the chemotherapy and is weakening you've again pulled off the food supply for the cancer cells. So it gives you it increases your odds incredibly.
So
Although we did tell this.
when you start implementing this diet into your husband's treatment, how long did you start seeing a change in his recovery factors?
Well, so it's a long journey because he went through chemotherapy. So they gave us the chemotherapy program that he would be on. And it was a dose adjusted. So there's 6 doses of 1 week, and then you'd have 3 weeks off, and then another week, and then 3 weeks off. And they increase it by 20% each time because this cancer, and a lot of cancers, but particularly this one, becomes resistant to chemotherapy. So they want to increase the dose each time. It's a really aggressive treatment. And most people, they said, don't make it through the treatment. It's one of those that if the cancer doesn't kill you, the chemotherapy will.
Right.
But he went on, so he started the chemotherapy. They're also warning us about how serious his cancer is. And we had hope. And I think they thought we were in denial, that, they just wanted to really make sure we knew that this cancer had very bad odds. And the chemotherapy, most people weren't going to make it through that. So by the 3rd round, he was on his 3rd round of chemotherapy. And the oncologist now, we told him we're on the ketogenic diet. You should always tell your team what you're doing. But a lot of doctors don't really understand diet. So he said, well, it's good to not eat sugar, but you need carbs. Anyway, he really was here nor there with what we were doing with our diet and not really interested. But by the 3rd round, he was blown away. He said, you're my #1 patient, like for the least side effects to chemotherapy. Like Greg had really very little side effects. We were walking 10,000 steps a day. He was golfing. We were paddleboarding. He actually started to feel better than he had been feeling when he had the cancer before diagnosis.
What were some of the foods that you was introducing into his diet, and which carbs were you taking out? Because I agree with you with the doctors not being too concerned about the nutritional aspect of a situation and the nutritional parts that need to be added into a situation like that. I'm glad that you had the insight to really dig deeper and combine the two. But what were some of the food items that you took in, and what were some of the things that you take out to allow his progress to get the pretty much the seal of approval from your doctors?
Yeah. Well, we took out most carbohydrates. So you're down to about 5% carbohydrates. Only carbs that he ate were vegetables and low carbohydrate vegetables, leafy greens and asparagus, a lot of cruciferous vegetables.
So a lot of low glycemic carbs.
Very low glycemic, and high fiber carbs. So we took out potatoes, yams, all grains, of course, sugar, that's obvious. Even fruit we took out. And this is one thing people don't really realize about a therapeutic ketogenic diet is it's not a high protein diet. It's fairly low in protein. You maybe have heard people say, oh, the ketogenic diet's not sustainable. And when people say that, it's not because you're lacking carbs. Carbs are not an essential nutrient, but it is low in protein, in the long run. It's a little bit low in protein. But I mean, in the long run for maintenance, you can up that protein. But for therapeutic ketogenic diet, it's a little bit lower on protein than you would thrive on. But that's because excess protein will convert to glucose. And we were just really keeping the glucose low. So that means not even extra protein. So it's a lot of fat. And a lot of, we focused on healthy fat, MCT oil, coconut oil, olive oil.
What did you just say? MCT oil?
MCT oil? Yeah.
Yeah. You know why? I haven't heard that in years. I used to use MCT oil back in the 80s.
As a bodybuilder.
Yeah. Medium chain triglycerides used to guzzle it down.
Yes. Yeah. It's very big in the
Yeah.
ketogenic world
Mhm.
because it actually increases ketones.
Mhm.
And so, it does burn fat. That's why you were using it to be lean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And it bypasses the normal digestion of fats. So it's used as energy. So fats take a while to be converted to energy, but MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides, are immediately used as energy. So it increases your energy, increases ketones, increases mental clarity. It's great for your brain. Yeah, so we were using the fish. I mean, and we switched everything to grass-fed, pasture-raised meats, and then vegetables are phytonutrients are key. So you asked me what we took out, and that's the most important thing, what you take out.
Mhm.
But a close second is what you put in.
Right.
And cruciferous vegetables break down tumors. They also help chemotherapy do what it's supposed to
What are
do.
some examples of those vegetables for the viewers that
Yes,
may not know?
right. Good question. Sometimes I forget that everybody's not on the same lingo as me. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, arugula, radish, turnip. Turnip would be a higher carb, so we really didn't use that one. Cabbage. Yeah, so all those sulfur smelling vegetables
Okay.
are cruciferous. Yeah. And they are key. So that is one you want to have 2 servings a day if you're going through cancer. We had these different goals of what we were keeping now, but 2 servings a day of cruciferous vegetables. And then other phytonutrients like green tea, it stops growth of cancer cells and it prevents growth of cancer cells. Chamomile tea stops metastasis, the spread of cancer. It induces apoptosis, which is self-suicide. And these are all things that cancer cells override and reprogram because, like I said, we all have cancer cells, but our bodies have a lot of wisdom, and the cancer cells should commit suicide. They should self-destruct. But once they've taken over, they don't. They reprogram everything, so they no longer self-destruct. So there's phytonutrients in plant food that reprograms your cells back to what they're supposed to be doing for those cancer cells to self-destruct, for the growth signaling of the tumors to stop, for the cancer cells to stop overriding the immune system. For the angiogenesis, the creation of new blood vessels. Again, chamomile tea stops that. Exercise stops that. And so that's why we're, made sure we got the 10,000 steps a day. That all stops the spread of cancer. So there's so many things that you can do.
So your husband is now clear.
Yes, he is. And let me say too about the chemotherapy. So on the 3rd round, I told you the oncologist was blown away. So by the 6th round, that was the last round that he had. So he would be in the hospital for infusion for a full day. And then he had a PICC line, which is just goes up to the artery near your heart. And you'd walk around with that. You get to go home. You used to have to stay in the hospital, and you'd be getting a drip of chemotherapy for a week. So the first day you go in, the pharmacist dispenses it. You sit and you have it. By the 6th round, the pharmacist came into the chemotherapy room and he said, I just want to meet the person that is getting this because we have never dispensed it at this hospital before. Nobody has made it that far. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's at a cancer center. That's a hospital with a big cancer center.
Right.
And then we were telling our neighbor this story, and she had just retired from Princess Margaret, which is one of the top in the world cancer centers. And when we told her that, she goes, you know what? We've never dispensed it either at Princess Margaret the whole time I worked there.
Really?
Yeah. So he made it through the chemotherapy. So, and it's a combination. The diet can work as a standalone, but it can also allow you to get through your treatment. Because I work with cancer patients all of the time. And the big thing is before your next chemo, they're going to do your blood work and make sure that your blood work is healthy so you can go on to the next treatment. And with my clients that I'm working with, every time their blood is perfect, just like Greg, blood is perfect, blood is perfect, blood is perfect. Go off the keto diet, all of a sudden the blood's not perfect and you can't move forward with your treatment.
How can the viewers get in contact with you? I mean, such a great story. I'm proud that you saw a window of opportunity to advance your knowledge and to pass that knowledge on to saving lives, which started in your house, and naturally you're playing that forward in the community and the world. How can the viewers reach out to you to know more about your ways of saving other individuals that might be having the same issues?
Right. So I have a website, ketofitjanet.com. And also, that's my Instagram is ketofitjanet. And on my Instagram, I'm putting out exercise videos and some diet tips regularly. And somebody can follow me there and DM me, or you can also reach me through the website.
Tell me what, Keith, before we wrap up today's show, and once again, thank you for coming on and sharing such a remarkable Beast State of Mind episode. What keeps you going? I mean, you got to deal with people to keep their fitness going. Just went through that with your husband. What leave the viewers with something that keeps you going every day?
For me, it's just passion to have a reason to wake up, have a reason to continue to grow and level up. I mean, if you don't have goals in life, that's when you get depressed. That's when you don't even want to get out of bed. So no matter how old you are, how young you are, how old you are, where you are in life, it's so important to have goals and to just be striving for something. So once I finished, help saving my husband, I
Yeah.
didn't want to stop. And I'm now doing a master's level course to be a certified oncology nutritionist in metabolic therapy. And I love to have a reason to research. So my reason is to help other people. And that's always been my calling, to help other people. And it gets me out of bed in the morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.